Well there everyone, welcome back, and today we're taking a look at this. Now this is the Nerf Elite 2.0 Double Punch. Now, the Double Punch in concept is fairly similar to the Nerf Elite Stryfe. Now, this is actually the modulus version I have here, but the point being is that this is a semi-automatic battery-powered flywheel Nerf blaster, of which I've actually done a couple videos on. One comparing it to the Nerf Elite 2.0 Phoenix, and then one to the Adventure Force Spectrum, of which will be either here or here-ish. But that said, the Double Punch has one main distinction from those other blasters. The fact that it has two barrels. Now, this is still a semi-automatic blaster, and so when you fire the trigger, it does not fire continuously. As a matter of fact, what actually happens, since it has two barrels, it alternates them. So effectively, I believe what happens is that when you pull the trigger, when you pull back, it fires one, then when you release, it fires the other. Though the upshoot of that means that you effectively, for all intents and purposes, have twice the rate of fire as you would on a normal Stryfe. Now, the downside of that, of course, is that you have to have two of the magazines, which means that you have to, as opposed to only having to reload one, you have to reload two. Though it isn't too bad because they're right next to each other. So, and you actually you have separate magazine releases. So if you only want to release one, you can do so, or if you want to release both, though. The trigger means that the barrels are linked, so you can't fire one barrel and not the other, which, I mean, you could probably modify it or something to change that, though that might be a bit complicated, especially since this whole system might be a bit more complicated than a normal Stryfe, since it appears to be actually, it is kind of clear or see-through, which means you can actually see some of the parts that are on the inside of it, which I think is actually, it's pretty cool. That's an interesting cosmetic feature. Though, it appears that it has one flywheel cage, but there's two sets of flywheels, one on each side for each of the barrels, with two, of course, per, for a total of 4 flywheels. So, that said, sure it's possible to modify that, though, again, might be a bit more difficult. There is a jam door, however, here, so if you so desire, you can reach in there to clear out any jams, though there isn't very much room, so you would have to remove the magazines first, and even then, I mean, I have relatively small hands, so if you happen to have average or large-sized fingers, you might have a little bit of difficulty with that, though, your experience will vary depending on how large your hands happen to be. Now, that being said, though, cosmetically, this blaster it is interesting. Certainly, quite different from a lot of other Nerf blasters. It is something of a design. What's the right word? It's different from a lot of the Elite 2.0 blasters, or even the Elite blasters, because for a while, Nerf was about the blue and orange, and then with the Elite 2.0, it was this sort of light blue and then this orange, which you can obviously still see here, though. They're incorporating this sort of light lime green type coloring, along with the clear plastic, so perhaps that's something we might see more of in the future, which I think that it's interesting. I mean, it isn't my favorite color scheme of all time, though it's always good for not all blasters to have the same sort of coloring. I mean, you don't want all your blasters to look the same. But yeah, that said, also these barrels here, you can see that as of right now, when I'm not firing, one is actually longer than the other. I mean, they're both the same length. What happens is that when you fire the blaster, they swap, so they go back and forth, kind of like the old Rhinofire did. The Elite 2.0 Rhinofire from back in the day. So it sort of works the same way as that, except that, of course, was automatic. This is semi-automatic, so, it'll be a little bit different. For batteries, it takes, I believe, 4 AA's, so the same as the Stryfe, which slightly surprised. I thought it would have been 6 like the Spectrum, but that said, it is how it is, and that it does lead me to one of the small gripes I have about this blaster. As opposed to the Spectrum, the Stryfe, and even the Phoenix, this has a fixed stock, so as opposed to something like the Stryfe, where you have the stock attachment point, where you could attach, well, I mean, you could leave it as it is, or you could attach a small stock, like the Retaliator stock, if you are very small, or you can even attach a worker or similarly large-ish stock, so you can, you can shoulder it and, fire it like like normal, if I don't break it. But yeah, for this though, it's a fixed stock, so even for me, I don't have particularly large arms or anything, but even so, this is kind of cramped, which means that even that while I'm firing it, it isn't really practical to shoulder it. I mean, it's possible, but still, it's really a bit too cramped and too small to be useful. Though it makes sense, because, I mean, at least some, because they had to put the batteries somewhere. I mean, you can't really put it here. I mean, they could have put the batteries here, but then, they probably have the reasons for it, but still, I would have preferred even if not a stock attachment point, at least an adjustable stock, which I think would have been possible, but c'est la vie. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get to firing this. It is a bit loud. Yeah, you can clearly see the rate of fire. It's quite good. And then you can see the double punch. It's where that phrase, the name of the blaster comes from the alternating barrels, but yeah, I mean, definitely not a quiet blaster, so if you're looking for something that's sneaky and you're able to hide around with, perhaps a bright orange, green, and blue blaster that is about as loud as a lawnmower, then this probably isn't the blaster for doing so. But that said, I mean, well, if you're looking for something that's a bit louder and more brash, then this will definitely suit that purpose. Now, that said, this also has the Nerf, tactical rail that's on the top of it, so if you desire to fit a scope or something of that kind, that does have the attachment point there. There aren't a lot of tactics on this blaster. That is one thing that's unfortunate. The tactics being something that, it's always quite something that is quite good to have on a blaster, but, there's only the one tactical rail, there's nothing on the bottom, and no adjustable stock on the back. It isn't the end of the world, though it is something to take note of. As for the trigger itself, I mean, I do have a small hand, as I have mentioned in the past, but even so, this is a relatively comfortable trigger. If you have a really large hand, it might not be the best one in the entire world, though, I don't know. They've certainly made worse. I'd say it is better than the one that's on the Phoenix, for me at least. And as for the mag releases, you might think that having two mag releases might be more difficult to manage, but even for me, I'm still able to get it so that I can release both with my middle finger here. So yeah, I mean, overall, also, they don't have the magazine lock, so as opposed to a stock Stryfe, you can rev it even without the magazines in, so that's something to take a note of. That said, overall, this blaster, it's pretty fun, it's pretty good. I wasn't expecting something like this from Nerf, especially not right now. I mean, because the last couple of years, they've sort of have had a track record of not producing brilliant blasters, but this year they seem to have fixed that, at least somewhat, for now at least. We'll see what next year holds, but yeah. Not a whole lot else left to go over. It's a pretty decent blaster. One thing that is notable is the fact that a drum magazine, which these are some stick magazines, which actually I'll go grab a couple for demonstration. Sit tight for a second. But yeah, so even if you have something like yes, this is confirmation I don't actually wear jeans when I'm making these videos. I always wear shorts. That's probably something you would rather have not known, but, you know. I do at least wear shorts, which is more than some are able to say. But yeah, I mean, for instance, if you have something like a 35-round drum that the old Raider used, you can load one into the left side, but problem is that they're both on the same side, so you know you can't do that. And plus, I mean, the Raider magazines aren't they're built for a blaster that's side feed, so I've found them to be rather unreliable with blasters that have the vertical feeding. They're even something such as the 25 or even I'd imagine the 18-round drums. Oh. Well, they don't actually fit. They don't actually... Okay. Well, that's also... that is noted. And so, yeah. So, I mean, you're going to be somewhat limited by the types of mags that you can use in this thing, which... It's not the end of the world. I mean, you still have a relatively high ammo capacity, given, of course, the twin mags, though... depending on, you will have to be careful of the ammo that you conserve, and you will have to have plenty of spare mags on you if you so choose to use this. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty decent blaster. It isn't perfect. I would prefer an adjustable stock. It could probably have done something a little bit different here, especially to better fit something like an 18-round stick mags, because given the bump on them, I don't imagine they would fit terribly well in here. But overall, it's a pleasant surprise of a blaster, and something that sort of came out of the blue, but came in and worked well. And yeah, it's pretty much all I can say about it. It's a decent blaster, and I mean, the Stryfe is still better in some situations, but there's definitely some situations in which you could say that this is a better blaster than the Stryfe or even the Spectrum. So yeah. Alright. Well, have a good day, everybody.